I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and in the late 1980s, there was a shocking revelation that unraveled the pristine image of one of the world's most beloved sneaker companies. Nike, long held for its innovative and athletic prowess, became the poster child for exploitative labor practices. Investigations revealed that many of its factories in Southeast Asia were actually paying workers below subsistence wages, enforcing inhumane hours and maintaining hazardous conditions. Also, that consumers in the West, like me and my friends, could sport $100 and $200 sneakers. But here's the kicker. Millions of people who bought those shoes had no idea. Teenagers like myself lacing up our Jordans, weekend runners, grabbing the next pair of Air Maxes. They weren't villains. They weren't knowingly supporting sweatshops. Yet, they were entangled in a system of injustice, unknowingly tightening the web with every purchase. This is the subtlety that Isaiah points to when he writes, "Is not this the kind of fasting I have chosen? To loosen the chains of injustice and untie the cords of the yoke?" We tend to think of sin as dramatic and overt acts of violence and corruption and greed, but some of the most violent, corrupt, insidious forms of injustice actually thrive in the shadows, embedded in systems that we move through daily. Consider the simple cup of coffee you bought on this morning's commute. Coffee is one of the most traded commodities globally, yet many coffee farmers live way below the poverty line. Fair trade organizations have worked for years to correct this, but still the majority of coffee passes through complex supply chains where the middlemen take the lion's share, leaving farmers struggling simply to survive. Or take global fashion industry. Fast fashion giants churn out $5 t-shirts and $20 jeans, but the human cost behind that price tag is enormous. In 2013, the Rana Plaza factory in Bangladesh collapsed, killing over 1,100 garment workers. The factory produced clothing for several major global brands, and consumers around the world wore those clothes without ever even knowing the hands that made them or the conditions under which they labored. See, this web is vast and sticky, and we're born into it, wrapped in its invisible threads long before we can even make conscious choices. Our groceries, our clothing, our smartphones, each carry a backstory of labor and resources and decisions made far upstream. And this is where Isaiah's words sting. It's not enough to simply be unaware. The call isn't just to personal piety or good intentions. It's to vision, to see the hidden cords behind the slow work and to loosen them. But where do we start? I think this begins with curiosity, the willingness to ask uncomfortable questions. Where was this made? Who picked the produce? Who stitched this shirt? It continues with small acts of resistance. Buy local where possible. Support ethical brands. Vote for policies that promote fair wages and environmental protection. Isaiah's vision isn't one of shame, but it's actually one of awakening. It's the recognition that holiness is not found in grand religious gestures, but in the gritty, daily choices that ripple outwards. It's in noticing the worker behind the product, the farmer behind the fruit, the earth behind the industry. The good news? Every web has weak points. Every cord can be loosened. The slow, faithful work of justice often begins with not the revolution, but with the revelation. Seeing what was hidden and choosing, however imperfectly, just to do something about it. So, where do you see the hidden threads of injustice in your daily life? What's one small change that you can make this week to help loosen that web? Choose one product you regularly use, coffee, clothing, electronics, and just research its supply chain. Look for ways to make a more just, ethical choice the next time you buy. In the end, Isaiah's call isn't about perfection. It's about participation. It's about refusing to be passive in systems of harm and choosing instead to become a thread in the fabric of healing.